she comes. Yep, she's getting closer. She's gonna open the door. Let's see. She's gonna slam the door. She's gonna slam the door. Please don't. Don't. Oh. Oh. Thankfully, it's not my car. Anyways, let's roll.
Okay, check this out. Here's what we have. 2024 Mazda CX-90, the first time ever Mazda is offering a full-size 3-row SUV. That's new and it's the first ever. On this side, another one, the Lexus TX, first ever. Finally, Lexus is introducing a full-size 3-row SUV, which means that RX with the third option, well, that's kind of gone now. So this is what you're left. And today we're going to compare these two to see which one is actually the best option, which one should you buy, which one offers the most space, most comfort, and of course, fuel efficiency, because both models are mild hybrids, the CX-90 and the TX. That's the TX500h F Performance 3. This is the signature CX90 MHEV, which is also a mild hybrid. So let us begin first with the exterior. Okay, let us begin first with the Mazda CX-90. Let's talk about this. Exterior paint choice, it's brilliant. I love that they've included this for the press car because it really gives this thing a different perspective. It feels more luxurious, more premium on the outsides, and it's absolutely stunning until you get to the rear end, which I'm not a big fan of, and I've said this in a previous video. The rear end of this car, it's very awkward the way they have designed it. That again is my preference. The front end on the other side changes a bit. We have a very massive blacked out grille, which I love. You don't get fog lights with this package. You get LED headlamps in this case with auto turn on and turn off, auto high beams as well. And you get your beautiful daylight running light, which is well carved and well designed. Big fan of it. Moving on to the wheels. With this package, you get the 21-inch wheels, but these are pretty wide tire, 275/45 for the sidewall. That means it gives you the perfect ride. Don't forget, the lower you have the sidewall, the thinner the tire, the less comfortable the car is going to be. We have foldable mirrors with this package, keyless entry, roof at the top in chrome. There's more chrome at the front. We have the badge on the side here. It says inline 6. Let's talk about the Lexus. Very, very different design to the CX-90. There's a bit more boxy, a bit curvy in the front, but overall, a lot more boxy than the Mazda. Mazda is a bit more curvy. You can see that side by side. Here's what you need to know. Of course, this is new for 2024. That means it's the first ever they've included this package, which I think is very, very important. It was about time Lexus offered a full-size 3-row SUV for most people, not a giant one, a big one like the GX and so on. Front end, you have the grille, which is actually a similar design with the bumper. It's all in one piece, so the way they've designed it is totally different to the Mazda, which is sort of like different from the grille, different than the bumper, and so on. We have these skinny headlights, sharp design, Lexus badge right in the front. But what I love the most is this grille that is well done, all very proportional to the car's design. Continues the same thing on the rear side with very skinny lights, daylight running lights in this case, but they're so extended, they make this thing look very futuristic, kind of like a RoboCop look, which I've watched the movie, it's an amazing movie, but this is what this thing looks like. You got fog lights at the bottom with cornering lights. That means when you turn, it will brighten the left or right side, depends how you turn. Next thing, the wheels. See, this is equipped with 22-inch wheels, big wheels in this case, which also means they're going to be a bit more expensive to maintain. Tires, an inch up, you can go between $600 to $800 just for the tires by going 1 inch up. In fact, I was looking up online the difference between 21 and 22s. 22s, of course, a bit more expensive. And if you want to get 22 for winter, for example, just separate from the stock one, that's still very expensive. An inch up, a lot more money. Brakes, that's another thing. This is equipped with the big piston black calipers in this case. I believe these are 6 pistons, which also means down the road you're going to pay a little bit more for maintaining the brakes, because the brake pads, the bigger they are, the more expensive, and of course the work that takes to replace them costs a bit more money. Next thing, let's talk about the side profile. This comes with keyless entry. I'm not a big fan of these door handles, to be honest. Let me show you why. In most cars, you sort of like pull the handle to open the door. In this one, you have a button over there, you press that and it opens. Now, why am I annoyed by it? Well, here's very simple. If you want to go fast, see, there's a delay, because in most cars you open and it opens the door. This one, there's a button. But I have to say, for some people this might be a lot easier, especially, you know, with age, you don't get the same power. Therefore, down the road, you just press that and it opens, and then you pull the door. So that might be an actual easy thing, but I wonder how these things will be during cold days when it snows. That's going to be interesting. Today I can't test it out, but if someone owns one, please let me know. I'll really be interested in how these things are going to handle during snowy days. Now let's talk about dimensions, because that's very important. The Lexus has a longer body overall in comparison to the CX-90, a few millimeters here and there. But the CX-90 has a longer wheelbase in the center. This one has a shorter wheelbase, even though it is longer as a vehicle. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, it means that they have figured out a way to adjust the interior space by switching the size of the wheelbase. So if you have a shorter wheelbase in this case, you're getting more cargo space in the back, but not so much in the front, which this does have. And we're going to talk about how much you get in terms of comparing it to the CX-90. This, on the other hand, has a more longer wheelbase in the center, which also means you get a bit more space in the front. But it's also because the vehicle has a bigger engine in comparison to this, which uses a 4-cylinder versus an inline 6. So the design, it's not the same, meaning they have to change the dimension based on the engine, based on the battery, based on space overall. But when it comes to overall space, the Lexus will give you more space behind the second row, behind the third row. And if you fold the first, the second row, and the third row, you're still getting a lot more space than you get in the Mazda. I've achieved that because of that longer body in comparison to the Mazda, and also the way it's designed on the inside. Another thing that you get with the Lexus that you don't get with the Mazda is the fact that the third row seats are essentially powered. You can fold them with the buttons located onto the side over here, as I'm doing right now, to get the most space. And there you go. This is pretty huge. Now, to fold the second row seats, what you do, same thing. That's one over here and one over here. So look at that. Now you get full seats folded down to give you the most cargo space. The Mazda, on the other hand, it's quite noticeably smaller. In fact, even this one here kind of touches my head a little bit. I don't have the same problem with the Lexus. I know I didn't show you that, but I've tested them out, and the Lexus gives me about this much of space. This one, on the other hand, it's just not quite there, so I keep banging. And I've put it all the way up. Anyhow, space-wise, when you look at them side by side, you realize that the Lexus does give you more space behind the third row, but with time, I realized something. Powered third row seats sometimes are not the best. What do I mean with that? Well, if you want to fold them, you can do it so quickly with this part. And I tend to find this a lot easier, to be honest, instead of waiting and pressing the buttons, which with time, they tend to not work, or if they break down, they cost a lot more money. I find this the easiest way, but the convenience of the Lexus is, of course, a good point for some people, a good reason to purchase the Lexus, because they just don't have that, let's say, muscular capability. They don't have the physical ability to fold them manually, so that might actually be one of the deal breakers for you. In this case, the Mazda offers 8 seats. The Lexus offers 7 or 6. The model we have today for the Mazda is 6 seats, the same thing with the Lexus. But if you wanted the most seats, the Lexus will offer you less, the Mazda will offer you 8, so you get one more. Now, how useful is the 8th one in the Mazda? Well, not for adults, but it's nice to have it there. For example, you have kids or a baby seat. Next thing is that on the Mazda around here, you get the same thing as the Lexus, means that you don't get enough space underneath. But you do get a converter on this side, 120 volts or 150 watts. In this case, if you want to plug it, you go camping, the Mazda gives you that option. Now the second row seats, the same thing. You can fold them like that, and there you go. So you get that folded, and there you go. So you have all 2 rows in the back completely folded to give you the most space. Now, let's get into the interior, and first we'll start with the 3rd row. So how do you get into the 3rd row? Well, there's a few options. First of all, you can just do that and move it forwards, which is nice, or you have a button at the top, you press, kind of hold that a bit, and then it moves automatically forwards. That's one way. Now, how do you fold the seat completely? Well, there's 2 options. You press the first lever on this side, you press the first lever to fold this, and then you do that, and now you have it folded. So it's like a 2-step process, which I think it's interesting. Now we're gonna do this quickly, and there you go. Now you get access to the 3rd row. So let's jump into the 3rd row. First of all, there we go. I'm sitting right here. There's a few options on this side. One is the fact that you can fold the seat here automatically if you want to adjust it to your desire. Oh, look at that. So there's nothing in the back. I can just chill. Gives you more headroom. There's a USB-C, gives you more headroom, more leg room, more comfortable. Accessories. Lots of cup holders here. 1, 2, one to slide your phone. There's a power seat on the side. There's a USB-C port on the left, USB-C port on the right side. And most importantly, you get the child seat for the left side and the right side. So you can put 2 in here, which is very useful. And as I said previously, this does offer only 7 seats in comparison to the Mazda, which has option for 8. Now, again, that's disputable in terms of the 8th one, but that's what you get in here. Another thing I notice here, this window is big, and I'm looking at the Mazda, which is on my left side right now. It's not as big as this. This is massive. That means it gives you a lot of light. There's also a light at the top here, since we're talking about an air vent. Same thing on that side. Headroom is nice, and if I had to fold this like flat, I still get a lot of headroom. How easy it is to get out of here? Well, it's actually not that bad because this thing is massive, so it gives you quite a lot of space. Okay, into the Mazda. How do you get into the 3rd row? Well, this thing, it's actually pretty easy because you can just do that and then move it forward completely, or you can do this and then pull the lever completely, and then you can fold it. That way it gives you access to the 2nd row complete, and then to fold it, you do this and then move it forward. So it's essentially manual. Now, for some people that might be a bit challenging. For me, it doesn't seem like to be the case. How do you get into the 3rd row? Well, push this all the way. It is tighter, I have to say, to get into the 3rd row. As you can see right now, not the most space. In fact, my head is touching the roof in here. And I don't know how to fold the 3rd row in here. There's no actual lever in here. All we have is 2 cup holders, USB-C ports, and you see the window here? Small in here. You can notice that, and I'm looking at the Lexus right now. This is about half the size, which doesn't give you the most brightness. Also, it will be very tough if we actually, let's try this. Like it's a bit tough, I have to say. It's not most comfortable. But if you kind of like duck down a little bit, it might give you some headroom. Other than that, I find the Lexus to be more spacious on the inside. And I'm sure you guys have noticed that now that I've sat inside here, and feels a bit classy, I have to say. It's like very small and just cramped, the third row. Generally speaking, third rows are not really for adults my height. They're mostly for kids. But it's nice to know that the Lexus does give you that option in the long run, which I think it's noticeable. Now, how do I move this seat forward now? Okay, and one more forward. There's no actual lever. How do I do this? So, okay, I moved back. So I kind of have to like reach myself. Nope, that's just folding it. Okay, this is strange. I'm stuck in here now. There has to be like a lever in here. I know the... No, there's no actual... There's nothing in here. I have to have someone do it for me or I'm stuck in here. Oh my god, I'm gonna rip my pants. Okay, this is weird. You have to have someone to move the seat forward for you. Otherwise, you have to leave it in this position. And then if you do that, the seat doesn't move forward. And then if you pull that... Nope, this is a bad design. Yeah, you have to have someone to move the seat for you. Otherwise, you're stuck in this third row. I don't get it. Now, let's jump into the second row. First of all, let's start with the door panel. You have sunshade for both sides, manually adjustable. You can do that, fold it, unfold it. And then you have lock button on the side over here. There is this lever onto the side here to open the door, which, again, you've seen this before in Lexus RX. Let's get into the inside. And here we go. Space, a lot of leg room. How much further back can you move the seats? Well, that's it. That's maximum for the entire seats. If you want to, you can do this with the recliner, and that is essentially the maximum will go. But you still get a lot of headroom. It's spacious inside. I could enjoy a long drive here. A trip would be nice for someone my height. The seats in the front are sitting lower. In the back, they're sitting higher, which is quite interesting. Tech features. Well, here's what you get. Climbing unit, in this case in the front, single zone, heated seats and ventilated seats in here, 2 USB-C ports in the center, some space, and 120 volts AC. In the center, this is where it gets a bit interesting. So what you see in here are the cup holders, because they had no other place to put them, of course, because this is a 6-seater. But here's what you do. You can actually remove them one by one. There's a button located onto this side over here that you can do that. Same thing with this one, and there you go. Now, why is that important? Well, let's just say you don't need the cup holders. Or like, I'm done. I don't need these things. You can just put them, store them somewhere. Now you get the extra space. Let's say if you have a baby, you got to put stuff in here. But let's just say you need more space. So what do? Wow. Guess what? You can remove the entire thing completely. And you can also do this one by one. And there you go. You can also slide them further, a little bit like that. And now you have the entire piece removed, and you just kind of like throw it away, which I'm not going to do, but that's essentially what you can do with this. That way it gives you more space in the center. But you can also easily slide this thing right there, and it's nice and sturdy and firm. You get a panoramic roof with this package all the way across, nice and big, which gives you a lot of brightness on the inside. Get these pockets in here for the seats in case you want to slide something or you need it. The seats on the inside for the second row have beautiful leather with that Alcantara finish around it, a nice touch. Nice and comfortable, nice and spacious. Now into the second row for the Mazda. First of all, what do you get on the door side over here? There's the vent, you have the shades on the side, manual adjustable. There's a button over here just for the window. Unlike the Lexus offers lock and unlock buttons on the sides. Let's jump into the inside and let's talk about it. First of all, room. You get about the same, although I do feel a bit more leg room in this case for the center parts. And I think that's where you notice that difference. It's mostly around this area where this feels a bit more roomy in the second row than the Lexus. But here's what you get in the sides. The seats, you can remove the recliner all the way back do that. You can move it back and forth, as we saw. Just the people in the back can do that. In the center, you get these two cup holders. Now, you have seen this similar design to what they offer for the CX-9. And then you get this butterfly armrest that gives you a lot of space, which is nice. But I don't believe you can actually remove this. Nope. You only get some space on the side, and you can't. No, you can't. This is all one piece in here, so there's nothing you can do about it. That means this takes a lot more space, which I think would have been nice if they did it like Honda does with the MDX, which you can remove the center piece. It actually turns into a full seat. They don't. There's a climate unit in here. There's heated seats and ventilated seats in the back. Single climate unit zone, and you get 2 USB-C port, which is nice. But unlike the Lexus, this doesn't have that 120 volts plug. The Lexus did have that. And other than that, it's nice and comfortable. It does feel a bit more like captain chairs. That's one thing I noticed with this. It feels like a movie theater in the back here. You got this nice part in the center with the cup holders, which you do when you go to the movies. The seats are comfortable. The tan interior is not quite my favorite thing, I have to say. It's too tacky a little bit, although it's supposed to look more premium. But I appreciate that I've used suede in the center part for the actual dashboard, and then you get this beautiful finish for the seats. The seats are nice and comfortable. They're very nice, cushy. You get some space behind the seats for the driver and the passenger in the front. Leg room is nice and comfortable. And there you go. It's roomy. It's actually pretty roomy on the insides, and I feel a bit more headroom. Now, one thing I noticed is the Lexus doesn't have this massive piece in the center that splits the sunroof. This kind of sits awkwardly in the center of this part here. Not a big fan of it. Lexus is just more cleaner in comparison to this. I like the interior space in the second row more than the third row. Okay, let's jump into the Lexus TX. The first thing you notice is this massive 14-inch screen. Let's start it up. Of course, this is not necessarily new, maybe new to someone that hasn't watched any recent Lexus reviews, but this is essentially the new design that Lexus is going forward. Even the RX has similar design on the inside, including the screen in this case. Now, the first thing you notice is the digital cluster, heads-up display, and then you have this mirror over here, which turns into a rear view mirror camera. That's similar to the second row that we just saw. You have cup holders in here, which can be removed in this case. I think it's pretty nice they've continued with the same sort of engineer in this center part over here. We have this little shift knob here, which is for your driving modes. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but you get used to it with time. There's more buttons in here. You have for traction, brake hold, brake, automatic brake in this case, a bit of that off-road. The screen, let's talk about the screen because that's super important. First of all, you got 360 camera with this package, and it folds the mirrors automatically. Once you go into reverse, you can also do this, wash the cameras, because if you want to take this off-road, not sure who will do that, but it's nice to have that feature. And then change the camera view as well, and the same thing over here. Now, when you press this button, it washes rear camera and the mirror camera at the top, which I think is quite impressive. Go back into the menu. You have built-in navigation system. This comes with 21 speakers. Mark Levinson for this package specifically. Otherwise, it's 12 speakers. So you get premium audio system in here. Same thing with this massive touchscreen, which doesn't give you a second control unit. It's only touchscreen. There's some buttons underneath here. You have the knobs for the climate unit, but the climate unit stays on into the screen all the time, including your heated seats and ventilated seats for the front. There's Apple CarPlay, Android Auto at all the times. You can connect wirelessly. There's also a wireless charging pad, which is located right in here. That is quite impressive. Why? Well, let's just say I have my phone charging. Slide it right in, and it gives you extra space underneath here, which I think is quite important. You push that, and it opens, brings your phone out. There's a bit of space on the side. Now, do you know how many USB-C ports you have in here? Well, let me tell you. 3, yes. There's 2 and 1 for the passenger side, which is nice. There's also a 360 camera button that you can use, and it gives you this field view underneath to check the surrounding. So this would be nice if you go off-road, which I think that's probably the goal because it gives you the best visibility. And look at that, fish eye view all around. Then you also have the parking mode. This is to help you park the vehicle, something you've seen before with BMWs and so on. It saves the location. If you go back into here, here you go. So next time we'll help you park it automatically. I like the interior. I like it feels luxurious. You got this nice Alcantara finish around the dashboard. The seats are the F Performance and they're powered. You got about 12 ways adjustment, I believe, plus the lumbar support that controls the center parts too. Here we go into the Mazda first row. Let's start it up. One thing I did get this week though with the Mazda says telematics malfunction, have the vehicle inspected. Just showed up today. I didn't do anything weird to this. I didn't drive it hard, so I don't know why that happens. But I'm not going to point it out and say that it's a bad car. It's essentially, it happens quite a lot with these press cars where sometimes the sensor just goes a little bit cuckoo. So it's not necessarily because it's a bad car. So please don't take that as a bad thing. It's just one of those things with sensor that happens quite a lot. So journalists tend to not really complain about that because it's a normal thing to happen. I've had that with Mercedes quite a lot. In fact, I've had it with Toyota and Lexus. Just the sensor just goes off for a bit and then goes back to normal, which is absolutely normal because these cars have sensors all around. Now, interior. Again, this Windsor 10 interior, it's quite interesting. Not my vibe, but I can see people buying this because certain generation, without being ageist to some people, might actually enjoy this. Now, one thing I do like about the Mazda is the overall design, in the sense that the ergonomics are really good. Things are where they should be. The screen, that's a 12.3-inch screen, so it's not the same size as the one in the Lexus. You got a digital cluster, which is quite nice and sharp. There's also a heads-up display with this package, which I really appreciate. Into the center area over here, we have a climate unit with all the buttons. So if you enjoy buttons, the Lexus might not be the best because that has very few buttons. This has more buttons, which I personally appreciate, like heated seats, ventilated seats in the front, heated steering wheel with one level in this case, dual climate zone. I appreciate this. I like this. The screen is actually not touch screen in this case. It is manually controlled by the center unit that you see in here, which with time, I have to say, I've gotten used to it. It's not that hard. I don't have to look down to control the menu and go into the navigation or all the icons. I can do it without even looking down at all. Now, one of the greatest things about this is the fact that it's not going to leave any fingerprints, but if you do have Apple CarPlay, it goes into touchscreen mode. I don't know why they did that, but I will assume for safety reasons, not necessarily because they're trying to be, well, cheap in some ways. I don't think that's the case here. It's the case that they're just feeling that this is safer to do. But if you do Apple CarPlay, you'd have easier access. And also your phone goes into drive mode when you connect Apple CarPlay. You don't get the camera here at the top of the rear view mirror, which I really do like, because this right now with the headrest up, can't see anything in the back. It's actually very tiny little space, and that comes in real handy. But we'll talk about why the Mazda doesn't have that in a minute. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, wireless connectivity. This one uses Bose audio system with, I believe, 12 speakers, so you didn't get a full premium. The steering wheel is nice. It feels luxurious. It feels grippy. It's got a nice touch overall. You have the driver assistant package on the right side, and on the left side you have your audio and so on. The cluster changes when you go into different driving modes. You got your sport, you got your off-road, so you can control that through here. And here you go. Any changes, the layout, of course. The armrest has this butterfly design as well, which has two USB-C ports in here. They're not on the outside, they're actually inside the armrest, unlike the Lexus, which had 3 USB-C ports. And the center here, you have your volume as well, and then you have your auto hold and the park. The next thing is, of course, the driving parts, the price, and what engines are you getting with these vehicles. Let's go for a drive. The Lexus, under the hood, uses a 2.4 liter inline 4 turbocharged. Combined with the electric motors, of course, it makes 366 brake horsepower. That is impressive what they can achieve out of a 4-cylinder for a vehicle that weighs 5,000 pounds. Torque, It's 406. It uses a 6 kilowatts motor. The battery, it is mounted behind the second row, which gives it more storage because now it's not located at the back like some vehicles. It uses a 6-speed automatic transmission with these paddle shifters in here that you can have some fun. Right now we have it in sport mode. We're going to put it back to normal mode. Another important factor about the Lexus, it uses adaptive variable suspension system, also known as AWS. Another thing that the Lexus uses, it's called dynamic rear steering. So what that does is when you're going faster around the corner, the wheels turn with the wheels in the front. The rear wheels sort of follow that path, which gives you the best turning response. So when you're going around the corners, this vehicle is following the perfect trajectory to give you the most confidence. So you're going faster, that way you can take the corner a lot faster. Not necessarily like a Formula 1 car, but close to that kind of idea, you would say. At low speed, the rear wheels turn the opposite, so that gives you a larger turning radius in comparison to the Mazda CX-9, for example, which does not come with this technology. Another important factor is that Lexus uses what's called Direct 4 all-wheel drive technology. It moves the power between the front and the rear in a matter of milliseconds. And it does have a rear E-axle, electronic axle in this case. The 4 wheels shift the drive force to deliver direct and stable handling and provide up to 80% of the power to the rear wheels. So you can have distribution of 100 or 20-80. That means 20 in the front, 80% in the back. Now the important factor is that the Lexus uses an electric power steering wheel, hence why this feels super light. And the idea is to make your life as easy as possible while you're driving, so you don't have to use a lot of force to turn the steering wheel to this massive machine. The suspension system in here is super comfortable. The ride, it's a bit of a boat ride, but not to the point that you feel like you want to vomit. It's just perfect. The cabin noise is very low. You barely hear anything on the outside. It's super quiet, and even the engine, you don't hear it as much. It does tend to go into electric power or petrol engine, and you can see all the details on the dashboard for your power delivery, the battery charge, and so on. You can also do it in here, the energy flow. Let's try the driver assistant package. I'm going to set it on adaptive cruise control, lane assist. I've set the speed limits. You can adjust the gap assist with these units that you see in here. You can see everything on the heads-up display. I can change, for example, the speed right here. I can go into the following distance, which is gap assist, and you can change that as well. You press that, and here you go. It's right in the cluster, which is sort of like a second screen for you to use. And then you go into the speed. The speed over here, you can increase it. And here you go. It keeps you within the lanes. And if we do this, go into the right side, it's still keeping the lane green because there's a car on that side. It's telling you, guess what? You can't move because there's a vehicle. It keeps you right in the middle, which I think is super important. The Mazda under the hood uses a 3.3 liter inline-6 turbocharged MHEV, also known as mild hybrid. With premium, this car makes 360 brake horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. Now keep in mind, in regular, it makes less, at 319. In fact, that's a known fact. Like, it's not that hard to understand that premium fuel gives you more power. It's just a basic knowledge of automotive mechanics. In this case, this one uses an 8-speed automatic transmission, but instead of using a torque converter, it actually uses the dual wet clutch, which essentially gives you faster shifting in comparison to the standard torque converter. One interesting fact is that even though the Mazda uses an inline-6 that tows 5,000 pounds, but the Lexus uses a 2.4 four-cylinder, yet still tows up to 5,000 pounds. And that's across the board with the 2.4 liter, which I think is super impressive. Now, in terms of the steering, well, Mazda uses the standard rack and pinion type of steering, which also works with the engine RPM. So basically, the higher the RPM, the smoother is the steering at the same time. How do I feel this steering in comparison to the one in the Lexus? It feels slightly heavier and stiffer, about 20 to 30% in comparison. It's just as direct, but the Mazda, when you turn, you don't feel the movement of suspension as much as you do in the Lexus, which kind of like softens itself and then moves up and down on the left and right side to give you the most comfortable when the car is turning. Now, Mazda uses standard rear axle compared to the Lexus that uses an E-axle, and also different suspension system, adjustable in this case, which controls the levels throughout the driving experience because it adjusts that stiffness of the suspension. Does this thing feel stiffer? Slightly, yes. The comfort level that you notice in the Mazda, it's not at the same level as the one in the Lexus. This feels a bit more bumpy, a bit more stiff. Even in normal mode, it feels about the same. In the Lexus, you notice a much softer ride. Driver system package. Well, let's just set this up. We'll put it on. System. Cruise control is on. Lane assist. Steering. The screen is showing me the vehicle in front of me, and it's actually turning right now. Let's see. Okay, now really good. It turned completely, and it's actually showing me that there's a turn coming up right now. So showing me the vehicle in front, and I love the fact that I've included the vehicle in front being a Mazda 3 Turbo, which is nice. It's actually a Toyota in the front, but it's showing me on the dashboard because the icon was designed as a Mazda 3, which is kind of funny. But, and then it shows the vehicles going left and right. Now we're going to a corner. We're going a little bit fast here. It's not picking up the speed limit here. It's just going based on the speed that I've set it on. So I was going way too fast around the corner. Let's talk about money. How much are you going to pay for these two? Well, whether you pick the base model Lexus or the base model Mazda, you're going to pay more for the Lexus. In fact, the Mazda CX-90 that I'm driving right now starts at about $64,000, the one that I have, the CX-90 Signature. The Lexus that we're driving today was essentially the fully loaded. That's about $92,000 Canadian. That is a huge gap between the two. It's almost $30,000 in some ways. Is that justifiable? Is the Lexus that much better to being almost $30,000 more? Well, we talked about a lot of things. The space, the driving experience, the technology behind the drivetrain, the technology behind the suspension system, the driving in terms of the suspension setup. The towing is the same. Space, it offers more. I think is justifiably to have the Lexus at that price level. The price increase in the Lexus is justifiable because it's not the same in many ways. Also, tech features at the same time is very important, as we saw previously. I would say that the Mazda, being in the price that it is, it's well competitive right now, but that comes down to your preference. First, do you actually like the Mazda or the Lexus? Second, do you need that more space? Because as we saw, the Lexus does give you more space. Do you also need all those tech features that we talked about in the Lexus, which it does have more? And also the suspension system, the ride, and all that. And it comes down to you as the individual that you're deciding to buy either or. Do I personally think that the Lexus is worth the extra money? Yes. Driving them back to back, I noticed that. They're both great vehicles in many ways, despite the fact that I said I'm not a big fan of the rear end of the vehicle. But in comparison to the Lexus today, they're both great choices. It all comes down to what you want and what you like. Also, do you need 8 seats? The Mazda will give you that. And that's it. That's pretty much it. They're both fantastic vehicles. It's one of those roads that you can't really pick either or strongly. It's just a matter of preference and somehow the desire to have all those tech features that we talked about plus the space. And that's important. The comfort level is noticeable. So there is a difference, and I think the price is justifiable.